Namaskar, hello and welcome to this English class for all the 12th class students. And the poem we're about to discuss is Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. Well, what is so special about Pablo Neruda? How is he different from other poets? And what is this poem all about? Keeping quiet. Do you like keeping quiet? Do you not like keeping quiet, or do you feel safe? Do you feel worried, or do you think always when you stay quiet? There's a lot attached. So pitch in your views, your opinions, and how do you feel through our YouTube channel, which is ncertofficial. In the live chat box, write down your feelings, your opinions, and what you think after reading this particular poem. So we have an expert in our studio. He'll be reading the poem, he'll be explaining the words, the emotions behind the language the poet has written, and a lot more. So let me introduce you to our today's expert. He is Professor R. Meghnathan. Welcome, sir.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm good, sir. Sir is from Department of Education and Languages, NCERT, New Delhi. And it's going to be very, very interesting. Well, language is always interesting. So 12th class students, please be ready with your questions. If you want to call us, the number is 8800440559. So let's begin this conversation, and I would like to ask Sir, so keeping quiet, it's a strange kind of a title. So what exactly is Pablo Neruda trying to say in this poem?
Okay, before that, let's also reflect. Poetry has a purpose, you know.
Yeah.
Poetry has much deeper purpose than, say, a novel or something. And another thing, if you closely look at historically look at revolutions and political changes or social changes, there has always been some writers, poets. So, for example, French Revolution, and the great thinker, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So then the Indian independence also had lots of poets, Subramania Bharati to many poets. So poetry is an instrument for change.
Yes.
That's what Pablo Neruda is. That's what. So I have answered, and we are not going to tell learners because they are in class 12. So we are not going to tell them much about the poet, but of course a bit. So let's come to why keeping quiet. So I am a noisy person, let me admit it. So I keep talking this one, but in a day, sometimes I sit quiet and reflect. Sometimes I feel when I close my eyes, I hear more noise than when I am awake.
Yes.
So why is it so?
That happens.
Why is it so?
Maybe we think a lot when we stay quiet, or we try to understand why is it happening, what is it happening.
Let me ask learners as well as you.
Yes.
You must have studied recently, but we left school long ago. Let me ask learners. Most of the teachers tell you to be quiet. Why are you not keeping quiet? It's human nature.
Yes.
Okay, that's what Pablo Neruda is trying to tell us. There are times in life, many everyday life, be quiet and reflect on it. And he doesn't say that, it doesn't mean that you withdraw, be silent and withdraw from the world. No, he says, be quiet in order to be active. That's what I understood. I shouldn't have said in the beginning. So Pablo Neruda has a very great history, a life he lived, and he was part of political movement, and the entire Latin America he reflected, with the South America he reflected. All that, let us say a small, not an orderly poem. It's not written in any order. You can't put him in any straitjacket, meter and all. He is trying to convince us this poem is for everyone in the world. Okay. That's what makes a poet of noble stature. He received Nobel Prize. That's fine. Okay, let me ask you, learners, here are some questions. Look at the slide there. Something is appearing. Have you ever been alone and felt in the quietness of some time?
Yes.
In the morning sometime, in the evening.
Yes, and maybe when I sit in the park all alone, and I can feel the quietness.
How did it feel?
It feels calm, nice, and it makes me more aware.
Yes, of you as well as the world.
Right.
Okay. Do you feel lonely, safe or worried?
None. I don't feel lonely.
That's it.
I don't feel worried. And
I also don't feel safe.
also
Because nobody is safe in this world today, probably. Well, learners, you must have been watching television in the city of Chennai and some parts of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. The safest places people thought are now flooded. So there is no place safe. That doesn't mean that the world is completely an unsafe place.
So I would say I feel peaceful.
Fine. And peace is not necessarily safety.
Right.
Okay, all right. And okay, we'll discuss a lot about it. There is some sociology, social life, politics, many more things. Come on, let's take a look at the poem first. Okay, I'm going to read first, then we will be reading out the poem to you learners many a time, in order to understand the many layers of meaning.
Sure.
So let me read out the poem. Now, we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. For once on the face of earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment with rush without engines. We would be able to be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in cold sea would not harm whales. The man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in shades doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I will count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. Look at it. The poet is trying to take you to another realm, another domain, and I would say another time. Okay, I'll count 12. 12 is not a big number. So suppose if you do it by closing our eyes and you keep quiet. And he says, what happens? We will be together. Look at it. Sorry. So let's read. You read again.
Okay, one slide before this. That's where the, yes. So now we'll count to 12 and we'll all keep still. For once on the face of earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I'll go.
Okay, he's going. This is Pablo Neruda. What do you feel about the poem? What does he want to tell us? Let us take the layer meaning, the baser meaning of the poem.
What I understood was he's trying to say that if we'll stay quiet, there would be less problems and we'll fight less, we'll understand more, like the two examples he gave, the fishermen won't
kill the
whales and the salt makers, they won't hurt their hands. So people will think more and act less, unnecessarily.
Fine.
Won't act.
All right. Now let's take the poem again. Let's look at the first stanza again. Counting, it's very clear. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep quiet. So let's say that he never says, towards the end he says, I will count 12, you keep quiet, then I will go. Then he wants a kind of loneliness of a very human, because the earth is lonely. So look at it. Now in the beginning it begins with togetherness. Now we will count to 12 and we will keep still. He's not saying keep quiet, keep still. What is spoiling the earth? Over stillness, means over activeness. We are overactive. For once on the face of earth, he says, for once on the face of earth, let's not speak in any language. He says, sometimes we convey more in silence than in speaking. So that's it. Let's be silent for some time. And for heaven's sake, let's not speak any language. We must have seen that all the political debates which happen on media, television, on newspaper, on even public in-person debates, do you think that they lead us to any solution? I do believe that there is necessity for dialogue. But at the same time, unnecessary quarrels don't lead to anything else. That's what he says. Look at it. Now, for once on the face of the earth, he is not saying for the sake of God as heaven, because he is a revolutionary poet. I don't think he believed in existence of God. That's his personal thing. But a poet, he says, for the sake of earth, not for the sake of God or anybody, for the sake of you yourself, don't speak any language. Let's stop for a second and don't move our arms. He says that nowadays people are so violent. Let me give an example. It may be a political example, unwanted example. Let me tell you, the ex-president of United States of America and the current president. So he was making a lot of noises. And I'm not saying that he was defeated due to that. That's an electorate decided. But look at this current president. He's quiet.
He's quiet.
And we may not find a lot of difference between these two in terms of United States of America as a nation. But one is quiet, the other one was making noises, so he got into trouble. So he also made the world into trouble. So lots of things. So he says, for some second, let's look at the words. See, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for a second and move our arms so much.
Not move our arms so
let's
much.
not move. Yeah, then it would. What is it? What is it? Read the last two lines.
It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines.
What is that exotic moment? There's no rush. You get up in the morning, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, then go for morning walk. There is that, then rush to office here, and we do not know how the day passes. At the end of the day, at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, you are tired. Then same routine. He says, if you stand still, sit still, don't speak, it would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. And we are in Delhi and many cities, and now everywhere a lot of vehicles, engines. Now look at it, we will all be together. He says, when there are no noises, wherever you are, but you will feel you are with everyone. That's what we all will be together in a sudden strangeness. Where we are together?
In a sudden
strangeness. What is that strangeness? Because it's strange, we can't explain it. So it's a kind of strangeness. The fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales. And the man gathering salt would look at his hand. Have you ever been to a place where they make salt?
Yes.
And the hands will be, they almost like bleeding sometimes. It's very harsh. It gets dried up. He says even those, they will have time to look at their hands. So what generally we do, we know more about others than ourselves. So when the poet feels it's fine, you will be able to look into yourself when you are alone and keeping quiet. That's what. Look at it. We will all be together. What would be an exacting moment? No rush, no engines. Then look at it. It would be, we will all be together in a sudden strangeness. What is that strangeness? It's like whales will not be harmed, and people who have hurt themselves will have time to look at that. And learners, you must have seen that you are in class 12. lot of physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics and social science, this, that, then sometimes you feel, oh, I have never looked at my own body. Means cutting their nails or combing. So many times you feel,
Right.
no?
We
So-
can put many examples in there that people are so busy in their day-to-day life that they don't get time for their passion, let's say for the hobbies or anything they enjoyed before, but now they don't have time.
That's right. And do you live as you are supposed to live? Means, you say, I'm not what I am. People say, my life changed. How it changed? The job, I got a job, I started studying, this, that, everything changed. That's what they say. Now look at the poem again. Fishermen would not harm, and people have time to see their hands. That means it's not simply seeing their hands. The men who make salt, but it's actually everyone looking at their body even. And how many of us, boys and girls, let us tell you, it's how many of us we say in this adolescence education, you must develop a love for your body. That's what actually happens. It's not being very stylish or something. That our body is a wonderful thing on earth, and I think any organism for that matter, whether it's plant or animals, our body has evolved over the millions of years. Then it has its own endurance. Life supporting system. It can fight diseases. We have been surviving. We have survived the pandemic. Of course, we have lost many lives, but all this we can see. The body is great. So that's what the poet saying. Come on, look into yourselves and your body, your mind, and enjoy that. Look at it. Now look at it. What is an exacting moment? People won't hurt themselves. Then read.
Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing.
Okay, let's wait for some time. He says that when you keep quiet, some exacting moment, then you can know your beauty and your wounds, both. And when you are quiet, the ecosystem is also saved. Now look at it. Those who prepare green wars, who are they? People who prepare green wars?
Soldiers.
Soldiers. Who are the green? What is green war here? Okay, we'll come back to that. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors. If you really look at Second World War or even the First World War, we do not know who won the war. Germany was supposed to win, and the Allied forces won. At last, democracy won the Second World War. And how many we lost? We do not know. The greatest ever human tragedy happened in Second World War. And we also had, I think, 3-4 wars with Pakistan. We claimed to have won, but who lost their lives? People lost their life. Okay, now look at it. Look at the poem again. Those who prepare green wars means to protect the green, the earth. Those soldiers, environmentalists, people who you and I and the teachers, people who indirectly, directly support the wars. Look at it. Wars. Why wars with gas, and why wars with fire? First one we got it somehow. There are two meanings you can derive. Who prepare green wars means to protect the green, or who fight the green, exploiting the environmental resources. That's what wars with gas. Learners, you must have been noticing from 90 onwards, then the entire Middle East is in somewhat conflict. But what for they are fighting? The natural resources. And whether it is Saddam Hussein or Sudan, Tunisia, and Colonel Gaddafi's the country, all those places, it's actually the war for the oil. That's what. Look at those lines. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire. So they are fighting with what? Fire. They are also fighting with fire, and victory with no survivors. Have they survived anything? Have we really got anything to achieve through this? There are victories, but with no survivors. And is there any question coming up? Look at it. With How can you win with no survivors? You tell me.
If there won't be any survivors,
Then what is the necessity of the war?
Yeah.
But we still
then
fight.
What will victory be like?
That's what. That's what. So he says, if you are quiet, introspect, the war could have been, war can be avoided. That's what. Look at the next line, and look at it. Who will see those who prepares green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors? All of this category of soldiers are people, politicians, who else who else not, will put on clean clothes. Means they will come out of their uniform, then walk about with brothers in shade and doing nothing.
As in they can breathe freely, they won't think much, they'll just enjoy the nature and weather.
That's right. That's
doing
right.
nothing.
So that means everybody says that war is inevitable, war is unavoidable. We are fighting a war in order to have peace. Is that true?
Yeah.
That's right. And even today, the world is fighting. Ethiopia, there is a fighting, rebels fighting. And in Sudan, there is an army queue. Afghanistan, what happens, everybody knows. Life is being threatened. But if all of them, he says, look at the lines, those who prepare for green wars, even those who say that I am going to protect the world and still fight, and you know that recently only Glasgow summit, in which the developed countries and developing countries, everybody has set time to be stopping green carbon emissions, and the United States and Europe says 2050, and we are saying 2070. They are saying that developing countries should do more, but we are saying you do more because you exploit more. You exploit the natural resources more, because the entire United States, using the air conditioners and all, the production of CFC, carbon emission, is maybe million times more than what Indians do. So because we don't use so many electronic items or equipments which produce CFC. So but they also say that you do something and we do something. So and India can't survive without the consumption of coal for its energy and other purposes. They said you stop all coal production. It's not possible. That's why India gets. So that's what he says. All of them have to come down. Look at the lines there. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes. All of them come out of their, it's not simply coming out of their uniforms, come out of their beliefs that I want something for me, I have to fight, their ideology, and walk about with their brothers in shade. Mean my shade falls on you and your shade falls on you, and together doing nothing. Keep quiet some time. Then he says, but at the same time, immediately he's a revolutionary poet. He was a part of the Chilean revolution and communist revolution. Later he was repressed, then he had to escape Chile in order to survive. And he was a senator for some time, Republican senator in his own country. Okay. Look at those lines. Please read the last two lines.
What I want should not be confused with total inactivity.
Why does he say? He says keep quiet. I'll count 12 seconds, but you have to keep quiet. But he also says no, don't take it as inactivity, lethargy, or death. So look at the poet. Look from the first line you read this stanza.
So those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity.
Again, he is no saint, he is no seer, he was no religious person. He says, don't think that I want you to renounce everything and be quiet. He said, as a normal human being, be quiet and introspect yourselves. So you need not be a saint, you need not be a religious person or a philosopher to be that. I'm not saying that inactivity. You know that all the philosophers are peaceful, alone, silent, but their words reverberated the world. Be it which is a great philosopher, Socrates, Plato, or Vedic texts, or Tamil Tirukural, all those, they were set in silence, but they made reverberations. That's what he is saying. Look at it. What I want should not be confused with inactivity. Why he says?
Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. if we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death.
So why, what is threatening ourselves with death? Let us go from the last line. Of threatening ourselves with death. Why? Because we don't understand ourselves. When we understand ourselves, we would not be threatening ourselves with death. So everybody today, politically, or when we are at war with somebody or at loggerheads with somebody, what we say that I will not leave you. What do they say? We threaten their life. Why we do it? Because we don't understand ourselves. So let's go from the last line of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. When you don't understand, you actually threaten yourself with death. This is what nation states are doing, political parties are doing, and neighbors are doing to themselves. That's what he said. Come out of all this, be quiet some time and count 1 to 12, introspect, look at your beauty, look at your wounds, look at your harms people do to you, and look at the harms you do to people. Look at it. Look at the poem. Again, this line, life is what it is about. What is about life? What it is about life? What life is about?
Fun.
I'll tell you the previous
Fun.
line. Previous line. Life is not confused with total inactivity.
Right.
Look at it. Life is what it is about. But I don't want any truck with that. Don't think that when I say I'm quiet, I will renounce yourselves. There are saints in those days, and there are some now also in some places in southern part and in the Himalayas. They sit still till death. That won't be accepted. Say, I want no truck with death. I want no truck with death. But if I were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt our sadness. What does it mean? Look at it. I don't want any access or any engagement with death, because life is to live. But at the same time, if we are not able to be single-minded and sometimes be inactive, silent, think about ourselves, then the sadness will be interrupted by the silence. Why everybody is running about? Because I want a job, I want to lead a good life. But at the end of the life, somebody will, what life I have lived? You must have known that Wordsworth's poem, What Man Has Done to Man. That's what. No, he says that everybody thinks everybody has achieved something, but what have we achieved something at the end of the day? That's what
people are after materialistic things. They're living a meaningless life.
And yes, that's one. And also ideologies drive, whether it is Hindu ideology or Islamic ideology or Christian ideology or nation state. See, why America is a rich nation? I have been asking the question to myself since my childhood. Why everyone wants to go to USA? Imagine that Indian rupee is 100 times more than American dollar. Americans should be coming to this country.
Right.
So that's all. But what have you achieved? What has the Americans achieved by making themselves superpower for almost now 60, 70 years, more than that? After Second World War, they became superpower. And we also had Soviet Union, which later collapsed because of its repressive nature of the governance. But do you think that is the only way to lead your life?
Absolutely not.
So that's what the poet tells. He is a Latin American. He stands for the subaltern people at the edge of the cutting edge of the society. He says, "Come on, let's look at it. Read, please."
Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness.
Okay, let me stop you. Huge silence will interrupt what?
Sadness.
Okay, because you are sad, sit quiet and reflect why I am sad. So sadness is broken by your stillness. So now that's what he says, I don't want any truck with death.
Yeah.
Don't take that silence is sadness and death. Okay, now go ahead, sorry.
might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death.
Fine. Now let's move on to perhaps, sorry, let me do that. Perhaps the earth can teach us what it can teach as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I will count up to 12. You keep quiet. I'll go. That's what. Look at it. What does the earth do?
The earth can teach us.
What it teaches us?
That when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive.
Have you seen in the parched hot summer, grass, if it appears that the grass or the plant is dead, but when one small rain, they come up.
Yeah.
How is it? Even the mushrooms, I'm talking about wild mushroom, what happens? It comes for some 10 days and it perishes, then again it comes. And even this, the insect which lives for one day, what do you name it? I call it, in Tamil we call it easel. But it waits for the rainy season and it comes and it lives for a day. But how is it possible every year they come? That means they are never dead, even though they live for a day.
Just inactive.
Inactive. So let's take it that way. Learners, it's not easy to understand a poem by one reading. So I'm going to ask, here is the poet, a famous poet. Here, let's talk about Pablo Neruda a bit. He was born in Chile, and of course during his university days he went to Europe to study and participated in the world was changing. Yeah, imagine they were children of Second World War. And so that revolutionary thing, and he started writing even during his school days. Okay. Then the school shaped him and the teachers shaped him. Then later move on to become an active participant in the Chilean democratic movement, Communist Party. He even became the senator. Later the same Communist Party started repressing trade unions, miners strike. He joined them, then he had to escape. He lived underground, hidden for some time, then moved to the foreign countries, again came back. In 1971 he got a Nobel Prize for Literature. Then one of the acclaimed greatest poets ever Latin America has given to this humanity. Okay. Of course, we also know that Jole Soyinka, famous poet, on whose birthday I think is celebrated as International Poetry Day. So a lot of things. Let's talk about a bit about the function of poetry. What function a poem does? You can quote from some Hindi lines and some of the lines. Let me tell you, because my mother tongue is Tamil. Subramaniya Bharati he calls the Yamaraj, god of death. You come nearer to my leg so that I can kick you. He says, Kala and Kalarige Vada, Unai Satre etri Udaikirin. Meaning, I think you may not understand. That's what he says. Imagine the poet was knocked down by an elephant at the age of 30 or something, and he died. But otherwise, had he lived, he would have made 2 Nobel Prize, many such things, and many great poets. Even Shelley, I think Keats died young of tuberculosis. Look at the courage of the poet. He is calling God of death, come nearer to me. I will not go to you to kick. You have to come. I'll kick. So that's the function. It's not that he wanted to trivialize Yamaraj. He wanted to tell us, don't be scared of death. It can come anytime. And let me tell you, learners, God, if at all he comes, death definitely comes, but it never comes like a guest. It will never inform you. So if it comes by informing, it's not death, it's something else. So that's what the poet says. Here also the poet says, be silent, small thing, but behind this, lot of things. Okay. Now, is there any queries, anything coming from learners?
So initially when you asked that, what do you feel? Do you feel lonely? Do you feel alone? Or do you feel worried? So we've got one of the answers by one of our viewers, and the person says, I enjoy being alone and imagination comes to meet me.
Very good. It is not simply imagination. Exercising the imagination. There are 2 things. I'm saying very conscientiously, everybody imagines. Someone imagines to be, I should become engineer, doctor, something. But someone exercises the imagination. Those who exercise their imagination becomes writers, poets, creative artists, scientists, or anybody. I'm not demeaning anybody lower or higher. A poem is a good poem like Pablo Neruda's poem is as good as a missile being or a satellite being conceptualized.
Yes.
Okay, it's not that, because I'll tell you the idea of a satellite, how it came into being, you know.
By exercising imagination.
And that's one. No, who gave this idea? It never came from scientists. I'm not undermining scientists. There was one fiction writer, I forgot his name. He settled down. He settled down in Sri Lanka towards his last days. Science fiction writer. In one of his crime novels, the rebels, the villains, they want to go to space, and from there they wanted to assault the place. So they had how it will go. They kept a wire, a lead to connect that. What scientists did was, he did it was, that imagination he took, and he made satellite without wire, remote control. That's why today we see that we have sent satellites to Neptune, Pluto, many things, even beyond the Indian solar system things are going. So learners, imagination is very important. I know that for some time the examination system, even NCERT books make you not to imagine so much because of your career building learning. But that's not the case. He is exercising the imagination. That's what the learner or whoever has said it. Now look at it. I want you to take a look at the poem. Some questions. What is special about keeping quiet?
Quiet. When I stay quiet, I feel special because I disconnect myself from the world.
And looking into yourself.
And yes.
Fine. Look at, we keep quiet, but what reason? Yesterday I asked one of my fellows, my son, he is always quiet. Then I sent this poem to him by WhatsApp and asked him, you read the poem and tell me, because when I took up the poem, you only came to my mind first. He said, Dad, I am not quiet, though I'm alone, my mind is reverberating. Then I said, okay, you have answered me, thank you very much. I said.
There's one more reason when I stay quiet. So when I'm angry at somebody or something, I become quiet.
Are you quiet at the time? Do you feel quiet there at the time? You are agitated.
In the mind, I don't. But then I calm myself while staying quiet. So I don't put it out or abuse anybody or curse anybody. No words come out of no wrong words actually come out of my mouth, and it calms me down. Great. That's how quietness works in my favor.
So you are actually following what Pablo Neruda wanted. And I tell you, there were some stories about Swami Vivekananda. One of them, you must have seen him always.
Yes.
He says that
favorite posture.
Posture, and it was believed, it was said, and it is said even now, that he was agitating all the time as a sheer, as a guru. So he controls himself. He says that I feel that I am small, I have to control. And also he said that this counting thing, he also said, count 1 to 10 and calm yourself. So
that is one of the anger control theory, if I am not wrong. So you have to count the counting either in the ascending order or in the descending order, and it calms you down. Oh,
great. I will follow it. Okay, now look at the other questions. Yeah. We have other questions. Come on, look at it. Why should one keep quiet? I say, let me say that.
Yes,
I am a noisy person. I will say that why should I keep quiet? If I am angry, let me shout at people. Why should one keep quiet?
Because you don't want anything wrong to happen to the person.
And that's one. Second is, he also says, if you are quiet, you are with the person, even the enemy. Okay. Is there a reason for keeping quiet? You have already answered that. Okay.
Your turn to answer
okay.
now.
Yes, I feel. So when you are not quiet, when you are noisy, you are spoiling the environment and others as well as you. So better keep quiet.
But is it all the time? Does it work in every situation, keeping quiet? I'm asking you.
Yeah, no, I will say that when there is need to be noisy, do it. That's what Pablo Neruda also did. He joined the striking, agitating miners against his own government, and he was interrogated, and he had to leave the country. So, but what is that kind of unquietness or not being quiet matters? Some people take to arms, as rebels they fight. Some people, Gandhiji showed his unquietness in a different manner, and we have seen many. Today the world is showing, the women of Afghanistan are showing in a different manner, and people in Europe, the migrants to Europe are showing, they are showing in a different manner. Now look at some more questions. I have used a word which is not there in English language, but why is lot of unquietness or noise everywhere? We know that. You have answered. Then, is this noise necessary?
No. In certain situations, no, not at all. We can always avoid them. We can always stay quiet and control the situation and keep the surrounding calm.
Fine. All right. Now look at the poem again. In a different manner, I have highlighted, given in bold some of the things. Okay. So could you read the lines again?
So, just the highlighted ones?
No, all. Then we'll come to the highlighted one.
Okay. Now we'll count to 12 and we'll all keep still.
Why? The poet says, let's do it. Come on, go ahead.
For once on the face of earth, let's not speak in any language.
Right. Why on the face of earth?
Because he was an atheist.
Yeah.
And
no, that's one. No. Why? Forget that. For everybody.
To save earth only.
Earth only and for everyone. Then why he says in any language? Because there is language hierarchy. If I speak English, it's assumed that I know much more than the person who doesn't speak English. In some languages. So let's not speak for any nationality, any linguistic community. Then
let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines.
Okay, what is that exotic moment?
There won't be any noise.
Okay, and without engines, because today the maximum pollution comes from engines. Coal mines or bus, trucks, everything. Then we would be all together.
Right.
In a sudden strangeness. What is that sudden strangeness?
That connects all of us.
And you feel, who am I? Am I Tanvi or am I Meghanathan? I am somebody. I am a human. That it makes you stranger to yourself. That's what fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales. So whatever example he knows, he sees, he takes it. It may be 100 things we can say. Then a man gathering salt would not look at the hurt hands. So this we have seen. So why these words you are using? Harm worlds, hurt hands, gathering salt, and sudden strangeness. Look at it. Then go ahead.
Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors.
Wait. Look at those words. Green wars. We are preparing for a green war. That's what Glasgow conference now. I think Indian Prime Minister went and Indian delegations went. There's now they say that whichever country reduces carbon emission, they will be given some credits. Now look at even the inequality in the carbon emissions. The developed countries, an old argument, let me again put forward. The developing countries have used lots of coals, exploited everything, polluted. Now they are using greener gases, greener ways of life, and they are telling the developing countries not to use it. How is it justified? For example, a rich person may be living a less polluting life. He may be feeling, he may be living a very, very healthy life, but expecting the same from a poor person who can't afford to go to a good hospital or can't afford to have three good meals a day. So this is the same thing. There is some inequality in each and every aspect of human life. That's why the poet says, forget everything, keep quiet and come to life. Okay, look at it. Look at the poem. So green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, but all these wars, you have no survivors, but you claim victory. Let me give the recent example. Afghan war, Americans claim victory, and the other party, let us take the name, Taliban also claims victory, but who lost their lives?
People.
That's all. Okay, then go ahead. Would put on clean clothes. All those people who have harmed the earth, themselves, people will put on clean clothes and walk about with their
brothers in the shade, doing nothing.
Okay, they will be quiet. So we don't have to fight war. Then look at the other two lines.
What I want should not be confused with total inactivity.
So he is not saying that keeping quiet means don't be inactive. Look at it. I want no track with death.
Yeah.
He said, no, be optimistic. No, Paulo Freire, the famous Brazilian thinker, he says, fanatically optimistic. He tells children, teachers, you should be fanatically optimistic even when you are losing your life. Imagine, education is for hope, poetry is for hope. Okay, life is what it is about. What it is about. No track with death. Life is for hope. Go ahead, please read.
If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving, and for once could do nothing.
Wait, sorry. What is our purpose? Life should be moving. Whether people are alive, dead, pandemic comes, wars happen, children are born, education happens, the world moves on. So the only thing being quiet is to understand the life is moving and could do nothing. You see, for some time do nothing and there's a huge silence. He said only 12 seconds, but it's a huge silence. What does the silence do?
It might interrupt this sadness.
Yes. What is that sadness? Truck with death. So he said the truck with death sadness is broken by your silence of 12 seconds. Then
of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves.
What is the
death.
sadness? Of never, we refuse to understand ourselves, even our own body. Sometimes body says don't eat this, but we eat that much. Then out of our taste for the tongue. So he says the huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and threatening ourselves with death. When you don't understand yourselves, you are threatening yourself with death. So for that reason,
perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I'll go.
Okay, now look at, I'm going to show you what would be an exotic moment. What is your exotic moment in life so far?
When a big change happens.
Why? Yes?
When something meaningful happens, or a thing which I can remember for a long time.
Fine. And then why is what is the exact moment you said? Then why is it so? You also have said, learners, now today after this session, count yourselves 1 to 12, or ask someone to count within you, and how that internal silence or exacting moment happens. Now look at it. These are some of the scenes. What we have done to this is these are the photos taken yesterday, day before, in some parts of Chennai nearby, then Andhra Pradesh. They are all living homes, and this is what we have done to our own selves by not being quiet, by harming this one. Look at it. Don't think that it only happens to India. These photos on from my right side are in Germany and England. That also happened. The most developed countries. Look at it. This is some are Europe, some are India. Look at it. This is what happened to people. Do you remember this? Pandemic start. Migrant workers. So we couldn't give them a silent, meaningful life because nobody expected this one. Look at it. This is the migrant scene near Poland, Poland border from Belarus.
Okay.
And what have they done? They were driven. All of them were not poor people, very poor people. They were from Iran, Iraq, Arab countries because of the turmoil. He said, why is it so much of unquietness here? Let us understand that. This is what the poet says. Come on, let's be quiet sometime. Let's not pollute the world. Let's not harm people the way we have harmed people.
Let's not harm the nature or the earth.
Do you remember? Indian Prime Minister had to come out and say that stay somewhere. we are sorry we could not help you. He said that. He said that because that was such a moment. Why? Because we didn't expect that. Even the very creation of virus, I am not claiming that when someone has created, the occurrence of the virus was due to human over exploitation of the nature, environmental. So that's what he says, let us be quiet for some time. Learners, I am going to request you some other things to do as you read the poem many a time. And NCERT, the entire textbook is in audio form. Listen to the audio also. Then let me give you some activities for you before we read the poem once more. I am going to ask you to read. Okay. Let us think of, let us take a 5 to 7 minutes silence when at home every day, and recall whatever you have done the whole day, and also recall how many people I have been very harsh with or to, then how many people I have submitted myself. The poet says that it doesn't mean inactivity, and whether I was inactive the way the poet thinks in my work or in my dealing with people. Sometimes today this is the target, this is the examination is next week, I must have played, today I didn't. So why I was inactive? That's the second thing we need to really introspect, learners. The word is reflection, introspection, and looking into oneself. In the West European countries, we call it Scandinavian countries, they do, and even Switzerland, Luxembourg, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, they never get into trouble after Second World War. They decided we will do whatever support to the world we will give, charity or whatever form, education, and we will never ever get into war with anybody. So this is what inward looking countries. But at the same time, I have to name some countries, it may be politics. Let me tell you, there are countries like USA, they intervened in many countries and gave unhappiness to the countries, sufferings to the countries. We may take the name Iraq, Afghanistan, and what's that, Gaddafi's, many countries. Then in turn they also lost their lives. So it's not easy to understand life so easily. So learners, let me ask you to read once more, then we close it, then I will count 1 to 12 and leave the learners to be silent, we will go. Okay, come on.
Sure. Now we'll count to 12 and we'll all keep still. For once on the face of earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We will all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now, I'll count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I'll go.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good reading. Let me tell learners, if you have any special demand for this particular theme, activity to be dealt with in this live session, we will do. You may send the mail, the places, the numbers you will tell. Before that, let me count 1 to 12. Then I will go. You continue. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let me go.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for discussing this entire and very interesting, appropriate, up-to-date and relevant poem. Thank you once again.
Thank you, learners.
Thank you to all the viewers for watching this session. And like I said, English is always interesting. So if you are into poetry, poetry is your cup of tea. Please read it again and again and understand the depth the poet is talking about. Thank you once again for being with us and sharing this platform with us. We are wrapping up for today, but we'll come back on Monday once again with more sessions on various subjects for various classes. So till then, take great care of yourself and namaskar.